Sahana vavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Saha viryam karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Sarasvati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda Madhavam. Okay, let us read the first 4 verses that we covered last time. Arjuna uvacha kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adhibhutam cha kim proktam adhidevam kim uchyate adiyajñah katham kotra dehesmin madhusudana prayanakale cha katham Nyeyosi niyatatmavihi. Shri Bhagavan uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavodhyatmam uchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhavakaraha Visargah Karma Sanjitaha Adhibhutam Ksharo Bhavaha Purushashchadhidaivatam Adhiyajñohamevatra Dehe Dehabhritam Vara. So last time we saw these 4 verses, right? And we are in chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, Akshara Brahma Yoga, the yoga of the imperishable Brahman or the imperishable truth. And the way this chapter started is Arjuna asked 7 questions from Bhagavan Krishna. These 7 questions were, what is this Akshara Brahma? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? What is Adhibhuta? What is Adhidaiva? What is Adhiyajna? And what happens at the time of death? Prayanakala. Right? So, Bhagavan Krishna answered these questions in order, and we saw 6 of the answers. So the first answer is, what is Brahman, or that Akshara Brahman? Means that which is imperishable, that which can never be destroyed, that which never decays, that which never grows, never shrinks, that which is as it is. That essence of you, of me, of this entire world, that substratum is called Brahman. So that Akshara, that imperishable truth, is Brahman. And what is Adhyatma? What is the nature of the self? The nature of the self is Brahman. right? So it says swabhavaha adhyatmam uchyate. Means when we think about ourselves, we are not this body, mind, intellect, jiva, but our real nature is Brahman. And what is karma? Karma is visarga. Visarga means letting go. True action means letting go of all of our likes, dislikes, all of our individual opinions and beliefs for the greater glory of all. And whenever we do this and sacrifice our individuality for totality, then that's how real action happens. And that is what gives rise to all beings and creates harmony in society. And then Adhibhuta. What is Adhibhuta? He says Adhibhuta is all of these things which are perishable, all the elements which are perishing. So space, air, fire, water, earth, this entire world, this very body, this mind, this intellect, this individuality, everything that perishes is called Adhibhuta. And what is Adideva? What is Adideva? Adideva is the cosmic mind, or what we know as Hiranyagarbha, right? So that what we call God, Bhagavan, that cosmic mind is called Adideva. And what is Adhyagnya? Adhyagnya means that voice of God, that Antaryami, that truth which is within us. Now, there were some questions about this last time, so I just want to clarify this concept so we all understand. See, what is Antaryami? Huh? Antaryami means that voice of God that resides in us. And that voice we hear when the mind is absolutely still and quiet. We will never hear that voice when the mind is noisy or disturbed or distracted. And that kind of voice, it doesn't come when you invoke it. Huh? It's not like we sit there, okay, let me listen to the voice of God. Let me listen to the voice of God. It's not like that. Huh? When we do our sadhana, our spiritual practice, and that spiritual practice specifically consists of quietening the mind. So whenever we perform a spiritual practice of quietening the mind, it could be contemplation on Upanishadic truths. It could be japa. It could be singing a stotram. Whenever we perform that, after we do that with the mind and it remains quiet for some time, there and then automatically things are revealed to us. So it's not something we can force. It's something that just happens. And this happens because the purer and the more quiet the mind is, the more it is connected to the cosmic mind or that Hiranyagarbha. So the more quiet the mind is, the purer it is, the more focused it is, it loses its individuality and it connects to totality. And when that mind connects to totality, then revelations come. So in our culture, it was never about, like logical reasoning and factual information and all kinds of things. Our rishis did not learn like that. Our great rishis learned by intuition. They silenced their mind, and in that great silence, things came to them. And that's how they knew. And sometimes you cannot explain this logically. Like, 9/11 happened, right? Now, for some reason, some people felt like they should not go to work that day. They felt they should not go to work that day. Some people felt that there was one person, she was, supposed to go to work at that time, but her mother said, no, you take this trip. You go with your friends and you take this trip. You don't go to work that time. Go ahead for your trip. Have a break. Have a nice break. I think you should go. Now, things like this just happened. Huh? So people for some reason felt they had to skip work that day. People felt that they had to go on a trip that time. People felt also, some people felt that that day they will go late. They felt it. Now, there's no logic. They just felt. Now, that is called Antaryami. Sometimes we cannot explain it, but we get this feeling. And this feeling is not instinct. Okay, it's not an instinctual thing. It is not out of, as I said, rush or passion or agitation or I just want to do this, I'm going to do it. It's not that. It is a feeling that comes from sattva. So this is called Antaryami. So the more in tune we are, the easier and the simpler life becomes. Because we don't have to keep thinking what to do, what is the next step, where do we have to go, what is life about, what decision to make. We don't have to keep thinking. All we do is tuning. So the shift of a spiritual seeker happens from thinking to tuning. That's all. And when that shift happens, then everything just flows. And as I said, there's no logic to it. There's no logic to this Antaryami. You'll just feel, okay, I have to go here, that. Just like that. And when you go there, you will know that this is why I came. This actually, everything worked out perfectly. Everything is magic. Everything's beautiful. So that is called Antaryami. And this tuning happens with our sadhana. So Bhagavan can be felt in our very own body. That's why it says dehe bhritam vara. In the fourth verse, dehe bhritam vara. What is that adi yajna that is in this very body? You please tell me what that is. And so Bhagavan Krishna says that is that Antaryami. Okay. So now Bhagavan Krishna answered the 6 questions. And what these 6 are in relation to the 7th, we will see as we open up the 7th, right? Now we will see the answer to the 7th question. 7th question is, what happens at the time of death? So let us read now verse number 5, and the rest of the chapter will elaborate on this. It will elaborate on what happens at the time of death, how do we prepare for death, all kinds of things about death. And in fact, this chapter is read when a Jeeva leaves their body. So this is one of the Bhagavad Gita chapters that are read, right? So let us continue. Antakale cha mameva.
Antakale cha mameva.
Smaran muktva kalevaram.
Smaran muktva kalevaram.
Yah prayati samadbhavam.
Yat prayati samadbhavam.
Yati nastyatra samshayah.
Yati nastyatra samshayah.
Antakale cha mameva. Smaran muktva kalevaram. Yah prayati samadbhavam. Yati nastyatra samshayah. So what Bhagavan says here, Antakale. Antakale means at the time of death. Kal means time. Ant means end time. So Antakale, at the time of death, Mam eva smaran. Mam, me, eva, me alone, smaran, remembering me alone, only me, Muktva kalevaram, one who, muktva, leaving kalevaram, the body, one who, leaving the body, remembers me alone. Yaha, that person, prayati, that person departs. Prayati means that person departs, that person goes forth. Where does that person go? Saha mad bhavam yati. That person, saha yati, that person goes mad bhavam, to me. That person attains my being. And na asti atra samshaya. Atra, in this regard, na asti, there is no samshaya, there is no doubt. So, whosoever leaving the body goes forth remembering me alone at the time of their death, they attain my being. And there is no doubt about this. No doubt. So, before we talk about now this time of death, first let us look at death as an overall picture. Let us try to understand death and actually how beautiful it is. Many times we think death is something so hard and tough and sad, and we want to avoid it. But in our culture, we embrace death. And I will tell you why. The first point is that death is inevitable, meaning nobody comes out of life alive, right? This body at some point will have to go. It has an expiry date. If it has a birth date, it has an expiry date. So at some point in time, this body will have to die. At some point in time, everybody around us, who we love, who we care for, their bodies will have to die. And that is a fact of life. And when does this happen? This happens when that Jeeva, that being, that individual can no more express themselves in this body, then they leave the body. That leaving of the Jeeva, that subtle body from the gross body, that is called death. So when that happens, the body sheds. And what leaves with that Jeeva? See, that Jeeva has their desires. They have all of their desires. They have their vasanas, their deep impressions. So their desires, their vasanas, all their karma, and their life breath. So that Jeeva consisting of the life breath, the karmas, all the collection of karmas, their vasanas, their desires, that Jeeva that is there, the body is too weak for it to express everything that it wants to express. Everything that it wants to do, body is too weak. So that Jeeva then slowly starts to let go of the body. And that's not in our control or in anybody's control. But that Jeeva itself starts to let go. And no matter what treatment we do, what we do for that Jeeva just has to let go. That time has come. The time has come for the Jeeva to go. And prayers help. They definitely help. They help by keeping the mind and the atmosphere pure of all those people around. But when that Jeeva has to go, the Jeeva will go. And this even happened with our Mahatmas. No matter how many people went to visit Puja Gurudev, when his body was dying, they chanted Mahamrityunjaya mantra and they kept chanting it, but his body had to go. Right? So even for our great Mahatmas, even if people will keep chanting, it is good. It is very good because it keeps the mind pure calm. It keeps the atmosphere calm. But when that jiva has to go, that jiva will go. And so therefore, in our culture, we understand this fact. We understand that there is no need now to hold back the jiva, because the jiva cannot express through the body. The only thing we can do is just let the jiva go. So we don't try to extend life. We don't try to extend life in our culture, make the life live longer, make the life live longer. Everybody is about extending lifespan. We don't come from that culture. Swami Tapovan Maharaj Ji, when Gurudev said, you want to go for treatment and everything for your body, and he said, no, I don't need to go. I don't need to go to Delhi for treatment. Why people don't die in Delhi? People die in Delhi. I'll stay here. And when death has to come, let death come. I am ready to face it. I am ready. So it is that kind of thing that in our culture, people prepare themselves to embrace death. And that's why we have that vanaprastha stage of life. Right? You all know we talked about this many times. Brahmacharya, grahastha. So the student life, the married life. And vanaprastha life is a retired life when people, they start to live simply. Start to let go of social ties. Start to even detach a little bit from family life, because they want to make people independent of them. It's very important that parents, especially those who are growing older, make the children independent of you, because you're going to go. I'm going to go, right? This trying to attach ourselves to them is not working. It's not gonna work. Vanaprastha is when we should get everybody to detach from us. We should in fact help them to detach from us. We should aid in that process, not make them more and more attached. Help them to detach from us, because right now we are going to go, and think about the other people also. Let it be easier for them. So Vanaprastha is that stage where those who are retiring, they slowly seclude themselves. They slowly keep to themselves. And they keep their mind on Bhagwan. And we will see why, because whatever you think about, that's where you go. They keep their mind in Bhagavan. So, and they understood. Okay, now the body is aging and I will go in some time. Let me keep my mind on something higher. So what people do, they'll go to places like Kashi. And they go there to prepare to die. There is an ashram there where people say, I'm preparing to die. This is our culture. What a beautiful culture, that I am ready to die and I am going to this ashram, I'm preparing to die. This is Sanatana Dharma. Or they will make their home like an ashram. I'm preparing for it. Mentally preparing for it. This is it. So this is death. And we have a ritual called Antyeshti. Antyeshti is the final samskara. When we come to this world, that Jeeva has to go through 16 samskaras. The last one is called Antyeshti. In Antyeshti, that body is cremated. Body is cremated. Why? Because the body is supposed to go back to the gross elements, so that the subtle body can now move on to another body. So this body goes back to exactly where it's from. Then there's 13 days of prayers. There's 13 days of prayers to pray now, because now that subtle body is traveling. It becomes what is called preta. It travels. Maybe for about 10 days, our scriptures say, it travels. And in those 10 days, there's a prayer for that subtle body to now take up a new body, And there's prayers for that family to start letting go, let go, let go of that subtle body. And finally, after the 13th day, then it is that feeling of now that subtle body has moved on to a new body, and may their journey be peaceful, may their journey be pleasant, and we have let go of them. We've let go of them, but we keep their presence in our hearts. We keep their presence in our hearts. And that 13 days is also very beautiful because it's a time where the family can really heal. So the whole family comes together and people cry. And it's okay. This is our culture is also so beautiful. For 13 days, they give us healing period. The healing period, because we have to cry it out. We have to cry it out. We have to let it go. And in those 13 days, the whole family comes together and supports each other. And then together, they let go of that being. So this is what happens to the body at death. This is why death happens. This is what death is. This is when it happens, right? And as I said, we have no control of when it's going to happen. It's already determined when this body is going to die. Based on the karma of this body, it's already determined when it will die. And we cannot escape it. There is one story of Yamaraj. And Yamaraj, is the king of death. He's the devata of death. And Yamaraj came to a king and said, "Now, king, I have come. Tomorrow at sunset, you will die. It's your death time. And I've just come to warn you." Now this king was very scared. Because tomorrow sunset, I'm going to die. Yamaraj has warned me. Lucky he got a warning. We will not get a warning. He got a warning. So he collected all his ministers. It was late at night already. And the next day, sunset, he was going to die. He collected everybody and he said, "You please tell me now what I have to do. What do I have to do? Because I'm going to die tomorrow at sunset." And so whole night his ministers were meeting. Everybody was talking, trying to think, how can he evade death? Finally, one senior minister told him in the morning, "Maharaj, you didn't sleep the whole night. Nobody has come up with a concrete plan. You take a horse and just go as far as you can from this kingdom. Just go as far as you can, and hopefully Yamaraj will not find you." So the morning, the king, he just hopped on a horse and he left. And quickly he rode the horse as far as he could until about sunset time. And right before sunset, he found one tree and he got off the horse. He sat on a tree and he just took a breath, closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes, Yamaraj was there. And Yamaraj was there laughing. And the king said, "Why are you here? And how are you here? And why are you laughing?" Yamaraj said, "Oh, look at the glory of God. I knew you were going to die today, but I didn't know how you were going to get to this particular tree to die. I knew you were going to come to this tree, but I didn't know how you were going to come. And just see, you are exactly right where you are supposed to be. And now, death is coming to take you." And so, he had to go. So, there's no escape from Yamaraj. Now, what is the beauty of it, of this whole thing? The beauty of this whole thing is that at death, we can go to Bhagwan. That's why we embrace death. Enough of this samsara life, all this, craziness that's happening here. At the time of death, Bhagavan says, "If you remember me, you will come to me." Oh, what a beautiful thing. Well, now who will not want to die? Tell me. Right? So if you remember me at the time of death, there is no doubt you will come to me. And this is the beauty of it. Now, is this really true? So let us see this next verse where Bhagavan gives us the general rule of life. So let us see verse number 6. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam
यं यं वापि स्मरन् भावं
tyajantyante kalevaram
त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरम्
tam tamevaiti kaunteya
तं तमेवैति कौन्तेय
सदा तद्भावभावितः
सदा तद्भावभावितः
यं यं वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरं तं तमेवैति कौन्तेय सदा तद्भावभावितः. So Bhagavan says that this is the rule of life. What is the rule of life? Yam yam va api. Yam yam, that which, va api, that which, even that which, smaran bhavam, that which remembering, smaran bhavam, that object bhavam, remembering that, tyajati ante kalevaram. Tyajati, when one leaves kalevaram, the body, ante, at the end. So that which one leaves remembering, one leaves the body remembering, that nature, that object, one remembers while leaving the body, tam tam eva eti, tam tam, to that alone, eva, to that only, eti, that person goes. Kaunteya, O Kunti's son, sada, constantly, tad bhava bhavitaha, constantly thinking of that object. So he says, whosoever at the end leaves the body, thinking of any being, to that being only they go. O Kaunteya, because of the constant thought of that being. So now here, what's the rule? Whatever we think of at the time of death, leaving this body, to that alone we will go. So some people might think, okay, at the time of death, I will play the mantras of Bhagavan. I will play the stotram of Bhagavan. I will think of Bhagavan's name. But actually, that is not in our control. Why? This word, the last quarter is very important. Sada tadbhava bhavitaha. The last thought that will come to us before death is not something we can control. The last thought is something that we've been thinking and thinking and thinking throughout our life. So it's not that just at the last thought, if we think about Bhagavan, we will go to Bhagavan. We cannot control that we will think about Bhagavan. At our deathbed, we may have some music playing, right? Om Trambakam Yajamahe. We might have that mantra playing, but our mind might be completely somewhere else. Somebody might be reading Bhagavatam to us or Vishnu Sahasranama to us, but our mind may be somewhere else. So wherever our mind is, that's where we're going to go. That's exactly where we're going to go. And that attachment that we had, that is the very manifestation of life here. So if we ask ourselves, why are we in this particular field, in this body, with this family, in this environment? Because this is what we desired. In our last life, before we left our body, this is what we were desiring. This is what we thought of. That is why we are here now. That's why we are here now. This is very prevalent in the story of Jada Bharata in Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm sure many of you know his story. So So I'll just tell you in brief. Jada Bharata was a very great saint, and he used to contemplate on Bhagavan. Now, one day, what happened was there was a deer. There was a deer, and this deer was drinking water. And when the deer was drinking water, heard the roar of a lion. This deer was pregnant. Heard the roar of a lion, and immediately just jumped away from there. And when the deer jumped, her baby was born. Her newborn baby was born in the water, and she passed away. She died. So this Jada Bharata, he felt so, compassionate for that deer that he took care of that deer. And compassion is a very beautiful thing. And taking care of that deer, being with it is a very beautiful thing. But what happened is he got attached. He got too attached to that deer that even in his sadhana, instead of thinking about Bhagavan, he's thinking about the deer. He's just thinking about the deer. Oh dear, deer. So even that was a huge distraction for him. And he could not sit still and quietly, as intensely, as deeply as before, because all he kept thinking about was a deer. Now, it is fine to take care of the deer, do whatever one needs to do for the deer, but one has to learn how to detach and go within. He could not do that. And at some point in time, the deer left. And when the deer left, all he kept thinking about was deer. Where is the deer? Where is the deer? I missed the deer. I've lost the deer. And Bhagavan took the deer away so he could go back within. But he kept thinking about the deer. So the next life, he was born as a deer. So like that, what we think of at the time of death is what we have been thinking of throughout our life. That's what we will think of at the time of death. We can secure ourselves as much as possible. Secure our environment. There was one man, he read the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8. So he secured himself. He said, I am going to name all of my children as Bhagavan and Bhagavati. So I'm going to name Rama, Krishna, and Devi. Set. So every time I can think about God. Rama, Krishna, Devi. This was his children. And he had a shop. He had a store, So he had a store. He used to manage the store, and he trained all of his children how to take care of the store, manage the store. And Rama, Krishna, Devi. Every day he would say, Rama, Krishna, Devi. These were his children. At the time of death, he's in his deathbed, very, very sick, lying there. And he's looking around. He sees Rama, very happy. He sees Krishna, very happy. He sees Devi, very happy. And then he becomes so sad. He says, Rama, Krishna, Devi, who's in the shop? And then he dies. So his asakti is not through his Rama or Krishna or Devi. He's thinking about the shop the whole time. He's thinking about the shop. He can bulletproof his life. Name it Rama, Krishna, Devi, whatever you want. But that attachment is what will come out. It will come out. Because sada tad bhava bhavitaha, it has become a vasana. It has become so deep in us that immediately we cannot let go of it. So that is where we will go. So what this is saying is, now that we are alive, now that we are living, cultivate this vasana of thinking of Bhagavan. Make that deeper. Make that deeper. And that doesn't mean that, we won't do our duties, we will fail in our duties. Bhagavan says, it's so easy to think about me. It's not hard, it's so easy to think about me. And I'm going to tell you how you can think about me in and throughout your entire life. I will tell you the secret. And if you do this, then for sure, at the time of leaving the body, you will think of me and you will come to me. And therefore, you will not be afraid of death. You will embrace it. So here is a secret of thinking about me all the time. Let us now read verse number 7. This is a very beautiful verse, very famous verse. Let us read it. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu
तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु
mamanusmara yudhya cha
मामनुस्मरयुध्य च
mayyarpitamano buddhihi
मय्यर्पितमनो बुद्धिः
mame vaishyasya samshayah.
मामे वैश्यस्य संशय.
So there should be samshayah. Samshayah. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhya cha mayyarpitamano buddhihi mame vaishyasya samshayah. So Bhagavan says, Tasmat, therefore, sarveshu kaleshu, in all times, mam anusmara. You remember me, mam anusmara. Yudhya cha, and you fight. Mayi arpita mano buddhihi, offering your mind and intellect in me. Mam eva, to me alone, eshyasi, you shall come to me. Asamshayaha, do not have any doubt about this. So therefore, at all times remember me and fight. With the mind and intellect fixed in me, you shall doubtlessly come to me. So he says here, now first we will look at this word yudhya. Yudhya here means fight, but what Bhagavan is saying is do your duty. He used the word fight here because fighting is Arjuna's duty. But for us, yudhya here means do your duty. Do your duty and remember me at all times. Now, question is, how are we to remember Bhagavan at all times? Is that actually possible? Now, one thing to see about our culture is it is entirely connected to Bhagavan. There is no life separate from religion. And this is what Gurudev has written also. Our life was never separate from religion. In every single aspect, Bhagavan is brought in. So there is no divorce. And as I told you before, we don't balance anything in our religion. We center everything on God. So every single science, math, art is centered on God. So first let us see holistically how our culture is centered on God. Then we will see how our lives can be centered on God. So take for example, yoga. Now yoga, the whole premise of yoga is so that we can build a healthy body and we can meditate and we can go inward to Bhagavan. That's the whole premise of yoga. It's not so we can look good and feel great and reduce stress. That is all happens on the side, but the whole thing is so that we can sit, learn how to sit quietly and meditate. And that's why if you look at Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, right, it's yama, niyama, asana, right? Asana is number 3. Then pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. It's supposed to culminate in samadhi. That's what it's not supposed to culminate in feel good, look great, feel young. It's not supposed to culminate in that. If you take our dance forms and music forms, all of them are a worship of Bhagavan. Bharatanatyam, for example, is a dance form. But that dance is offered to Bhagavan. Music itself is offered to Bhagavan. If we learn Sanskritam, even if you learn basic Sanskritam, you have to learn how to decline words. Now, what are the words that are declined? Rama, Guru, Hari, Lakshmi. This is how we learn Sanskrit. It's not any random word. It is Rama, Lakshmi, Rama. This is how we learn Sanskrit. When people learn Ayurveda, what is Ayurveda for? Ayurveda is creating a balance of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha in one's body so that they can pursue the highest truth. And they start invoking Dhanvantari. So it is in Ayurveda, food is medicine, so that we can heal the body to realize the truth. So every single form is connected to Bhagavan. Every single form, every single place, even historically, even the way we name our rivers, Ganga, Saraswati, Brahmaputra, everything is centered on God. Even business is centered on God, you know. For example, Gangotri is a very holy dham. It's a very holy place. So when that holy place was built, then what happened? All businesses started coming around Gangotri. Right, let us sell prasad items, arti thali, flowers, this and that. Let us construct a road that will go to Gangotri so that cars can come. So industry came, transportation came, roads came, because it is centered, our culture is centered on these religious places. And whenever a religious place comes about, all businesses, everything, they come around there. They thrive. So the center is God. In our entire culture, it is always God. That's why going to the temple in the morning is part of it. Even when we cook, that Naivedyam is first offered to Bhagavan. So every science, every math, every literature, everything centered on this. So now, our lives, how do we center it on Bhagavan? Bhagavan Krishna gave all of these pointers in the beginning. If you remember, these 6 things, right? So one by one, let us see. First, he says, Brahma. So, knowledge of the truth, pursuing the knowledge of the truth, pursuing the path of knowing who I am, that is centering my life on Bhagavan. That is giving myself purpose, understanding who I am. That is making me think of Bhagavan. Swabhavo dhyatmam uchyate. Adhyatma. Understanding that I am not this body, mind, intellect. Knowing that I am that true self. That practice of knowing who I am, knowing that my essence is the essence of Brahman, that is centering oneself on Bhagavan. Karma, letting go of our individuality and constantly thinking of a greater purpose. That is centering ourselves on Bhagavan. So even in and throughout our work, when we are thinking for the welfare of society, for the harmony of beings, that's God. Right? This whole world, all of the beings, everybody is an expression of God. So when I'm constantly thinking of the welfare for all, for society, for community, that is centering ourselves on God. Yesterday we had a fundraiser. And a fundraiser, we were raising funds for Upavan. That's also keeping our mind in God, because we are thinking of doing something for the greater future, for everybody. And Gurudev writes also beautifully, when we are in our very action, extremely focused, conscious that we're serving God in front of us. So nobody's saying stop doing your duty and just sit and think about God. No, Bhagavan is saying in and throughout, think about me. When we are cooking and we are serving someone in front of us, that person is God. Let me serve that person as God. When I am speaking to someone or listening to someone and looking at them, that person is God. When I am interacting with someone and or helping them, doing whatever for them, that person is God. My family, my spouse, my children, that person is God. So that karma, in that karma, how are we divorced from Bhagavan? We are never divorced from Bhagavan. In that karma is Bhagavan. And so when we keep that in mind, whether somebody's a doctor, a lawyer, anything, one doctor used to write, before every prescription, used to take the name of Bhagavan and then write the prescription, just to keep that awareness. What a beautiful practice. So when in karma we're serving the greater good, or we are very, very in tune with what we're doing at the moment, that's connecting to Bhagavan. And then he says adhibhuta. The fourth thing was adhibhuta. Adhibhuta means all the perishable things. All the perishable things are also God. All the bodies and minds and intellect and even things in front of us, they are God. And that's why in our culture we have Navaratris coming, we have Ayudha Puja, the puja of our instruments or our weapons, right? Reverence for every single thing, reverence for this computer, reverence for this book, reverence for the home. The home is a temple of God. The body is a temple of God, right? The books are something we revere. So revering every single form, whether it's living or non-living. That is also understanding that God is in this. God is in this. God is in this. And so we do puja to our instruments. When people get a new car, they do puja to the car. That let Bhagavan first be the first being to sit in it. Or when people do Graha Pravesha, let Ganesha be the first to enter the home. Let Ganesha be first to enter the car. So this kind of thing is ingrained. So constantly thinking of Bhagavan amidst all of these things, whether it's non-living or living. Adhibhuta. And then Adhiyagnya, of course, Adideva. Adideva is Hiranyagarbha. Of course, praying, connecting to that total mind, singing praises. And Adhiyagnya means connecting to that Antaryami, that silence, that inner voice within us. So every time we can be connected to Bhagavan. It is like constant Wi-Fi. Constant Wi-Fi, right? Don't we want, we're so funny, we want Wi-Fi all the time, but we don't want Bhagavan all the time, right? Wherever we go, the first thing, oh, what's the Wi-Fi? What's the Wi-Fi? What's the Wi-Fi? We want to be constantly connected to Wi-Fi. Instead of being constantly connected to Wi-Fi, constantly be connected to Bhagavan and have Bhagavan as that Shruti, that everything is God. My whole purpose is God. My whole being is, the essence of my whole being is God. And if this is in that background Shruti, that background thought, then where's the question of not thinking of God? I'm going to leave you with one example and then a few key points to summarize. I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you have taken the train in Bharat. It's such a wonderful experience when you take the train. And part of the experience is there's so many different stops, and every stop has a specialty. One stop has mungfali, one stop has some other nice fruit or some other nice food, and so many different stops. Now, so if you're the type to sit on the train and like to go explore, whenever there's a stop, you go explore. And while you're kind of looking at vada or whatever you're looking for, your part of your mind is looking for all this nice food, but there's a part of your mind that's listening to the train. Because Indian trains, you never know when they're gonna go. They just go, right? So a part of your mind is looking for all this great food, but part of your mind is listening to the train, isn't it? The background of your mind is listening to the train, when the train's going to go. And so you're buying food and thinking, and you're nicely eating. But when you hear that, you get back on, you run for your life and get on that train, because that train is not stopping for anybody, right? So the same thing. The background thought should always be Bhagavan. And in life, we might stop by to have a family, to have a career, to get a lot of wealth and fame. And we might stop by and make all of these stops. But let that background call of Bhagavan always be there, and always listen to it. Always listen to it. And at some point in time, we're going to have to drop everything, get on that train, and realize our oneness with that. That is life. Huh? Our life is about realizing our oneness with that. That's all life is meant for. It's okay if we have some stops on the way, perfectly fine. But let's not forget the destination. Let's not forget why we're here. Right? So our key points for today are, number one, death is a beautiful thing. A very, very beautiful thing. And everyone will have to go through it. And therefore, when it comes, embrace it. Because when this body dies, you and I can go to Bhagavan. What a beautiful thing. And so to prepare for that journey, here and now, keep thinking of Bhagavan. Stay connected to Bhagavan in all ways. And keep that background thought always in Bhagavan. And therefore, doubtlessly, we will be in Bhagavan. There's no doubt whatsoever. So live our lives where there's no doubt that we will be with Bhagavan. Okay? So more of this we will see next week. Right? Say the closing prayer, and then I have a few announcements. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.